So hello from Green-Mopeds in London. So today we're taking out the Horwin EK1. It's a 28 mile an hour hub mounted 2.8 kilowatt max electric moped. We're just going to sort of put it through its paces and see how we get on. The first thing, as we're here, we are now in mode 1, and this is what riding in mode 1 is like. 15 miles an hour max. Okay, so these bikes are often, they're for mode 1, and in some cases mode 2 is almost a pointless mode. I mean, it's limp home mode, it's stuck in traffic if you want to conserve energy. Okay, so that's to give you a feeling for that, what that's like. If we go into mode 2, mode 2 is looking like it's going to go up to about 22. Okay, and then mode 3 should give you top, which should be obviously 28. Okay, so that's that. I mean, often you'll find, and some bikes only come with 2 modes, you know, eco and sport, and people will never use the eco mode because it's rarely serves a purpose other than, you know, if you're really trying to save energy and hence range. One of the perils of a hub motor, silent running. So just to put this into context, in the Horwin range in total. So Horwin, their long name is Jiangsu XL Holding Company, and Horwin is the brand within that. Jiangsu is, as you might have guessed, out of China. They have 2 main models, the motorbike style, which is the CR6, which you've probably seen us talk about, which is a 6.2 kilowatt fixed battery, 60 mile an hour bike. And then they've got their moped range, which is the EK1 and the EK3. Within the EK range, they have got sort of sub offers, which are the EK1 Lite and the EK3 Deluxe. We do not get either of those in the UK. We get the EK1 sort of standard mode, if you like, and the EK3 standard mode. No real reason to take the EK1 Lite, to be honest, from what I could see, because this one's coming with the better battery, sort of 72 volt 40 amp hour battery, and that's the major difference. The other difference is that the EK1 Lite is a sub 20 mile an hour bike, which not sure why you would have one of those in the UK. At least maybe in other countries where you can take those sorts of bikes onto cycle paths and stuff like that, but we can't do that here, so probably no need for it. So this is the one we've got, the EK1. It's hub mounted. It's not Bosch, from what I can tell. It's Bosch motors normally have Bosch written on them, and this one doesn't. It says on it 2 kilowatts, which is its nominal power. Nominal power is the power that you'll see on your V5 when you get it, but its maximum power is 2.8 kilowatts. So if you were to compare this bike to some others, often the ones that people talk about are obviously a Soco CUx and then an NIU something. So compared to a Soco CUx, for example, the CUx has a 1300 watt motor with 2.788 kilowatts max. So this is more, if you like, lower end power or continuous power, but about the same maximum power. The difference between them, though, would be a little bit more weight in this bike. So this bike is 92 kilos as it is right now, and it has a maximum weight of 280 kilos, which is quite a lot, I have to say. Maximum laden mass, that is. The CUx is about 78 kilos, so lighter, by 14 odd kilos, and slightly less power. So, but the net of all of that will be that this is more powerful but weighs a bit more. The CUx is a bit less powerful but weighs a bit less. So you're probably looking at the same sort of power to weight ratio between the two. If you were to compare it to NIU, you've obviously got a few choices there. You've got the MQI Plus Sport, which its maximum power is 1400 watts, so it's nowhere near the sort of power of this. Weighs less, goes about the same. So on a power perspective, it will. This one will win out, but obviously you're going to pay a bit more for that. You're going to pay what is it, £400 more. So you might want to then consider, is the £400 worth it? But physically, it's bigger than an MQI Plus Sport, and a CUx for that matter. It's more the size of an N-based bike. So an NQI Pro or an NQI Sport. The NQI Sport is 1800 watts maximum power. So again, not as much as this one, obviously. But the NQI Pro is 3 kilowatts, so a little bit more. But the NQI Pro is £3,500 versus this one at 2,600. So you're talking £800 more for an NQI Pro. Most of the reason for that is the battery, or batteries. So an NQI Pro has 2 Panasonic batteries in it, 60 volt though, 35 amp hours, whereas this has one Panasonic based 72 volt 40 amp hour battery. So the quoted range on an NQI Pro is, you're looking up to 70-80 miles, whereas the quoted range on this in its one battery version is 45-50. However, if you were to add the second battery into this bike, which you can do, you're looking at another £1,400. So you're then talking about over £4,000 for this bike. And then of course the NQI Pro comes into its own there, because it's 3,500 or 3,700. Sorry, 3,600. So it sort of depends on, a few factors. Whether you want the big range that an NQI Pro would give you in a 28 mile an hour bike. If you do, and NIU are the people you want, then you're looking at, about a £3,500 bike. Versus this one, which will do, 20 odd miles less for 2.6. Okay, so depends what you want, really. That's what we always say. We try to be a bit agnostic about recommendations, because it all depends on what people want to do. Okay, but anyway, that's a comparison, really. I mean, the MGT, when it turns up in a couple of weeks, will possibly change some of that, because it is a 2 battery bike, although its quoted range with those 2 batteries is still under 50 miles, so it's probably about the same as this. It's bigger than an MQI Plus Sport, so it's probably physically like this, but we have to have a look at it to, highlight it. I don't know if, you probably can't see it, but in the reflection in the cinema there, you can see its lights, running lights. Okay, so from a style perspective, it is a good looking bike, I have to say. I do, personally, I like the look of it. What they've done is they've, as you see on the static review, they have added in some quite nice looking running lights, or the lighting in general, LED lighting. So they've got side running lights, which you can get on a NIU M QI Plus Sport. but these ones have running lights down the side and then quite a narrow running light across the front of the bike, and then you've got the main light itself, so the main cluster, which is here. You can turn it off completely because the running lights are still legal enough so that you don't actually have to have the lights on. Normally these bikes do have a dipped light on to make them sort of legal, but unless unless they've missed a trick, these ones are okay. Okay, so you've got the ability to turn the lights off completely there, or obviously dipped and full beam down here. Okay, what we're talking about, the sort of dash in general, it has a reverse gear. So 92 kilos is heavier than some, but not as heavy as others. You know, CR6 is 130 odd kilos and EC Cities are 160 odd. But this one, they've included a reverse gear. They have got cruise control down here on the green button. You have the sort of normal layout of going into ready and then swapping your modes. And then you've got indicators that do make some noise, which hopefully you will now hear. We're going to take it up our test road. Okay, so hopefully you can hear that. Indicators. You have to cancel them yourself though, no automatic cancelling. So this is a 1 in 7 hill, I think. And normally we try and see how the bikes perform up it, because it is fairly good test. I mean, as you can see, it's fairly steep. So most of these bikes should keep their speed, shouldn't drop speed. Okay, that's dropped 1 mile an hour. Okay, so did you see that guy just stalled his his hill start? You have to remember on bikes, electric bikes, that there is no clutch, right? Because it's twist and go. Hill starts could have ended up like that with that guy, because the reason being that as soon as you hit the brake, the throttle is deactivated. Okay, so you don't get a biting point. Okay, so you have to basically judge it right to avoid not rolling backwards on hills. Okay, that's just a general thing. That's not this bike, that's all electric bikes except for Ascol. Ascol do have the ability to do brake and throttle together. Okay. So as you can see, it's, you know, silent running. It's a hub motor. Sort of no dramas in the way it's performing. I think I probably would never use Mode 1, to be honest, but I wouldn't do that on an MQI Plus Sport either, or probably most of the bikes I wouldn't use the Eco mode. They're not meant for anything other than probably speed limit control, because they do obviously limit your speed. On this bike it's 15 miles an hour, 22 miles an hour and 27, so in fact I'm now gone down to Mode 2. I'm in a 20 mile an hour limit, and it looks like I can only do 21 miles an hour, so that is one way of ensuring sort of compliance with the rules. Okay. One of the things to point out about the dashboard is that they have provided you with obviously information about percentage left and speed, obviously, and trip and all that sort of stuff. But the other dial here is telling you about amps. We've mentioned this before on some other bikes. Does that help me? Does that help me work out how far I've got to go? Not unless you can calculate within your head that you've got X amount of amps, X amount of battery, you remember the specs of the battery, and you could work out any other factors that would help you to calculate how much range you've got left. In other words, this and on other bikes, where they include these sorts of things here, just tell me range, even if it's an estimate, I would say. So, you know, Super Soco do that. It just says how much range you've got, you know, and it's not accurate in as much as you've definitely got 20 miles left, because obviously the way you ride it will then could change all of that. But it's better than telling you about something that really isn't going to make much difference, which is in this case amps. Alright, so that's that. The other thing about the dashboard is it's got, which I'll show you in a minute, it's got the dashboard from the EK3, and on the EK3 there is the ability to start the bike with your finger. Okay, so here what you do, it's not a security thing, because you don't register your finger, it's swipe that and it starts the bike. That doesn't work on this bike because there is no alarm and no fob. Because on the other bike, on the EK3, what you do is you unlock the bike with the app, and then that becomes an option for you. But on here, because you don't have that, you don't have an alarm, it's on or off with the key. That is redundant. Okay. You would have thought that, well, firstly, you would have thought that it would have put an alarm on it. And secondly, why include that if it's not going to be used? Okay, so that's one little thing that they might consider for a future bike, perhaps. Talking about that, there is by default no app and no GPS, but that is going to be added to this model, I've been reliably informed. Okay, so as you know, on a Super Soco, on Ascol, on NIU, there are apps for tracking and testing. Okay, so the tracking is the most useful part. So obviously that means that if someone rides off with it, you can then track where they're riding it to, and then, you know, go and get it back. Okay, and all three of those other brands do that. This one doesn't have an app at all as yet, but when the GPS module comes out, there will be an app for tracking at least. The checking part, I wouldn't be too fussed if it doesn't have that. Most of the time you get errors on the dashboard anyway, which will give you a clue from the manual what's going on. Okay, so that should be here at some point in the near future. We're in now the end of March. Okay, other things that you can get on it, obviously you get within there, you get your USB port for your phone. Bearing in mind they do offer a Horwin branded phone mount to go on your handlebars. The cable to go to the phone from the USB port somehow has to get out of there with the door still shut, as in they didn't think of that. So in here, okay, it's magnetic. There is a little port for the phone. Okay, and then obviously bag hook. As I said, there will be a mat, and we've already seen some mats. In terms of charging, there's a charging point down here as well, and the quoted range, as I said, is 50 miles. So let's say that's 40 in reality. The charging time, they've said, with a 5 amp charger is 5 hours from flat. However, Artisan have decided to bring in the 10 amp charger. So as you know, if you double the rating on the charger, you halve the charging time. So that would suggest a sub 3 hour charging time from flat, which is a good thing. There aren't many other people that are getting anywhere near that. I mean, Super Socos are now coming with 15 amp chargers by default, and NIU have got a 12 amp charger on their NQI GTSs. But yeah, 10 amp charger by default on this is at the very least matching a CUx charger. So between 3 and 5 hours is your charging time, so that's a good thing. You can obviously charge the battery through the port down there between my legs, or obviously you take the battery out and plug it into a 13 amp socket and do all that sort of business. Okay. So this road is a 40, so we'll see how this bike rides just flat out, and there's a bit of a bridge coming up in a minute. So as you can see, the first thing is that it is a 28 mile, well in fact 27 mile an hour bike. We've got just under 70% of our battery left, 27 miles an hour flat out. Okay. As to how it's now going to deal with, it's probably a bit windy today, as you can probably hear, but as it would then deal with things like a bridge, a hill, we will soon discover. Okay, as I said, there is cruise control, so it's now set. The use of that, I mean, you know, cruise control in general on motorbikes, you've got to get to a place where that can be actually used. You won't see it probably, but down there is a little symbol that says I'm in cruise control, and there would also be a little R down there if you engage reverse. Okay, but quite hard to see. But other than that, I mean, the dashboard is you know, very easy to see. On the EK3, there's lots of sort of different colours that come around this dashboard based around what you're doing, the speed you're doing rather. So that held its speed going over the bridge here in Richmond, so that's fine. So 2.8 kilowatts, 3 kilowatts is normally around the minimum if you've got heavy loads or you've got hills and you want to be comfortable. Okay, that's just a general way it seems to be. Okay, so if you're ever thinking that you're going to carry 2 people on it, my suggestion would be get something around 3 kilowatts, 2 kilowatts, 2.8 kilowatts, 3 kilowatts, something like that, because you basically need that. Bearing in mind that 3 kilowatts is 4 horsepower. Okay, so I would typically suggest that if you're often going to be taking 2 people, that you go for a bike sort of with this sort of power. It could be an NQI Pro, even the CUx, although the CUx is a little bit small, I would say, to carry 2 people, but that would be my general recommendation. Okay, what else? Oh, no regen on this bike. People do bring this up, but you have to remember how valuable that is. So some people would say, well, you know, getting something for nothing, good thing. Other people would say, okay, but it's only going to give me 5% of my range. Okay, so this is a 50-mile range bike, so you're looking at probably a couple more miles. Obviously, if you're stranded 2 miles away from home, that 2 miles is going to make a difference. But would you choose a bike because it has regen or not? I'm not so sure. Okay, so no regen. So I think we've covered pretty much everything. The price is 2,644. It is on the grant, so you are getting the protection, if you like, of a 3-year warranty on the battery and a 2-year warranty on the bike. All artisan bikes, so that would be Artisan, Coulter and Horwin bikes in this country, get a breakdown service included. Okay, so that comes as standard, built into the price. That could be quite a useful thing to get. Obviously you could add your own to any vehicle, but it does come built in. Okay, so the 2,644 is the price after the grant. Okay, so you're already gaining 20% on that price. And as I say, with the 3-year warranty on the battery, unfortunately the second battery wouldn't be on the grant, hence the reason it is £1,400 more. If they had made a model that actually came with 2 batteries by default and it had its own model name, then they could have put it into the grant and got the 20% off the second battery as well, but fortunately not. Okay, so it's 2644 after the grant. If you were to add the second battery, it'd be another £1,500, so you're talking about 4,100, which does put it at the top end of the range but you would get pretty much the bike with the most range for that, near enough. I mean, it would be debatable as to how much more you'd get over an NQI Pro than this. So these are obviously, if you remember, this is a 28-mile bike. Most of the bikes that are doing larger ranges are 125cc equivalents. So this is obviously a 28-mile-an-hour bike, and hence you can ride this on a 2001 license. Okay, so all in all, hopefully that's been of use. I think I've covered everything. Obviously, if you have any more questions, then please feel free to let us know. And we will be open again soon, so if you want to come and have a test ride yourself, then we'll be happy to have you. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at hello@green-mopeds.com. Thanks very much.